Remember a few months back when I did a Ask the Chef video on which knives? It showed you the fundamental basic knives you need to do all cooking practices at a basic level. Well, that was great, and following on from that, a few of you asked me to demonstrate how best to use these knives to chop safely and efficiently like a pro. So that's exactly what we're going to cover. Firstly though is safety. Safety always comes first. So number one, 3 rules to remember, and number 1 is use a clean and sharp knife. Make sure it's sharp, and then you're less likely to slip off the vegetable and have an accident. And a clean, sharp blade is always, should it happen, going to give you a better cut if you were to wound yourself. Okay, you don't want to cut yourself with a blunt knife. Fingers crossed you won't cut yourself at all, but sharp and clean is important. There's a number of ways of sharpening knives. You can get knife sharpeners. You just run the blade through and it will do it all for you. You can use a steel with some oil on a block, or the way that I prefer it is using actually a steel, like a diamond steel. So grab hold of the handle, keep your thumb tucked in behind that guard, because that's why it's there, it's going to protect your thumb should you slip. Have a comfortable level, sort of waist height, and then you take the knife. Now you want to go from the tip to the guard, and from the heel to the tip of the knife. Okay, you want to use the whole thing in one go. So big arcing movements, down like that. Okay, you don't need to push down, just the weight of the knife is enough. And the angle you're looking for is 20 degrees. So imagine that's 90, that's 45, half of that again is about 20 degrees, that's kind of what you're aiming for. So just ticking it along, both sides alternating, heel to tip and tip to guard every time. And you don't want to let your knife get too blunt. Okay, so do this little and often, and then when you've given it a couple of tickles, just wipe off any of the residue, and then you can use your sharp knife. The second safety rule is always use a sturdy and safe board. Okay, so make sure you've got a damp cloth underneath the board. That will stop it sliding around. Okay, at which point you can always cut down into the board and never towards yourself. And the third rule, take your time and feel comfortable with the knife you're using. Always keep your eye on the blade as you're cutting. That's when accidents happen. As soon as you take your eye off and get distracted by other things, accidents are more likely to happen. I know, I speak from experience. Those of you who have seen some of the first videos we did in Sorted, I had a blue plaster on my finger for many weeks. It was a bad accident with a knife. It took a while to grow back, and that was only because I lost concentration. Okay, so safety first, concentrate and take your time. And now that we've got clean and sharp knives, I want to show you how best to chop like a pro. So first up, mirepoix. That's pretty much rough and ready, okay? So it's a mixture of onion, celery, carrot, and sometimes leek. All you need to do is really chunky pieces. We're just going to cut them, but make sure the knife is always going to rock back and forward. Either the heel or the tip is going to be on the board at the time. We don't want any of that. That's where we have problems, okay? So keeping it rocking back and forward, and we want really chunky pieces. They don't have to be too precise. But remember, your fingers are tucked in behind, never flat, because that's when you're going to have accidents. Next up is the rondelle. It's just a fancy name for little rounds. Okay, so take something, you'd use this for something like a courgette, a cucumber, carrot, something spherical, and all you want to do is just find its flat edge, find whichever it's going to be most flat on, and then you're just going to cut into rounds, same kind of rocking motion, making sure the important thing is they're all the same thickness. Okay, that's what you're looking for, because that's how they're going to cook evenly. And if you want to be extra fancy, you can take those rounds and do it on a slant, okay? And that is when you have diagonal rounds, okay? So that's rondelles like that, okay? Each time, fingers forming the guard and just gliding back as the knife comes forward, okay? But always in that upward motion. So paysanne, now that is a more decorative cut, but quite large, almost farm-like, okay? So we want nice chunky pieces like this, but again regular in shape. This is to look good, so it's going to go in something like a soup, so we want them to look all roughly the same. Squares, triangles, diagonals, whatever you want to go for is fine. Just make sure they're all looking about the same size and shape, and they should be about 1 centimetre across each. Then we have julienne. That's pretty much like matchsticks, okay? So if we take a piece of pepper, I'll just show you with one bit. We want very fine, again even. We don't want those round ends. What we do want are very fine matchstick-like pieces, okay? So again, take your time, nice and even, rocking back and forth, fingers back, and that's what you're looking for, okay? So julienne is a fine matchstick-like piece. Then one of the easiest is mincing, okay? And that is pretty much hacking, okay? So take whatever you want, and there isn't really any precision. The important thing is to still keep your fingers back, and it's just about keeping those fingers out the way and just cutting up as and how you see fit. So it's really, really rough and ready. You end up with quite a fine dice. Remember, each time, fingers on top, out the way, none of this. Always fingers flat on the top and rocking back and forth. Then you can use the knife to bring it back in and go again. Then we have brunoise, which is a very fine and precise dice. So take the julienne that we had before, okay? You want to cut a very fine julienne, rocking back and forth. And then the brunoise takes that and cuts that into a fine dice. And this is about as small and precise as we are ever likely to cut. That is a brunoise. And the final one is chiffonade, that's thin leafy strips. So take something like spinach, or we've got chard here, savoy cabbage, and it's just a matter of sort of rolling them up, and then we want the finest strips that we can get out of that. And it's these fine leafy strips that become chiffonade, okay? So there we go, for those of you who asked, it's our mirepoix, rondelle, julienne, brunoise, paysanne, minced and chiffonade. Alternatively, if you want to know the best way to chop an onion, then click on our Ask the Chef here. But most importantly, practice will make perfect. So be safe, enjoy the process, because sorted cooking isn't always about precision, it's about having fun. But for now, that's chopping the vegetables sorted.